Hello, and welcome to the Channel of Stories. Dear listeners, before we start the story, please subscribe to the channel and give this video a like and share in the comments where you are from. Thank you. Here we go.
I was supposed to be watching the sunrise from Juliet's balcony with someone I loved. Instead, I was crying into a tiny plastic cup of Prosecco at 35,000 feet. My boyfriend, ex now, had dumped me via text 2 days before our trip. I can't do this. I need space. That was it. Space. I booked the trip, paid for the villa, planned every little romantic moment. And he just vanished. But I went anyway. Call it pride or stubbornness, or not wanting my non-refundable deposit to go to waste. I landed in Verona bleary-eyed and brittle-hearted, determined to make the best of it. Until I got to the villa. Someone was already there. At first, I thought I had the wrong address. Then I thought I was getting robbed. But nope. Jamie, in his very British and very infuriating way, explained with absolute calm that he, too, had rented this exact villa. Same dates. Same confirmation. He even showed me the email from the agency, and yep, it matched mine. I wanted to scream. I wanted to cry. Instead, I did the next best thing. I dragged my suitcase up the stairs, claimed the best room, and slammed the door. And yet, behind the thick wooden door, the grief caught up to me. I sat on the bed, still fully dressed, surrounded by my suitcase, and let the ugly cry happen. Snot, mascara streaks, the whole thing. My carefully packed outfits stared back at me from the half-unzipped luggage, mocking me with their cheerful vacation vibes. This trip was supposed to be healing, or romantic, or at the very least, peaceful. Instead, I was now rooming with some stranger who wore smugness like it was cologne. Later that evening, I heard Jamie humming through the walls. Some old rock song. Loudly. Deliberately. I screamed into a pillow. Welcome to hell. He had a suitcase by the door, a half-empty wine glass on the counter, and a smirk that made me want to scream. Tall, British, probably early 30s, with that cocky charm that made you suspicious even before he spoke. "Ah, you must be the squatter," he said, sipping my wine. My wine. Turns out, the place had been double-booked. He, Jamie, had also rented it for 2 weeks. We both had receipts. Both paid in full. And the rental agency. Radio silent. We tried to work it out. Really. But I didn't trust his easy grin, and he clearly thought I was dramatic. So I moved his stuff outside. He replaced my wine with vinegar. It escalated from there. We established a schedule. I got the kitchen in the mornings, he got it in the evenings. We alternated who got to use the balcony at night. But it didn't stop the pettiness. I salted his coffee. He changed my phone language to Turkish. He played loud British punk at 6 a.m. I retaliated with opera at midnight. And yet, in the weirdest way, the hostility gave structure to my days. I had someone to roll my eyes at. Someone to match my fire. The worst part? He was clean. Immaculate, even. Which meant I couldn't even accuse him of being a slob. And worse, he was funny. Like, annoyingly funny. The kind of humor that sneaks up on you, makes you laugh before you realize you're supposed to be mad. I caught myself smiling once. Just once. And immediately scowled to cancel it out. He whistled a lot. Made tea with real loose leaves, like a walking stereotype. Always wore button-down shirts slightly wrinkled, like he didn't care enough to iron but still somehow pulled it off. Infuriating. I started a log in my journal called, "Reasons Jamie is the Worst." By day 4, it had 23 entries. Day 5. I caught myself doodling his dumb smile. I crossed it out furiously. He started leaving passive-aggressive notes in the fridge. I countered by swapping his tea bags with decaf. He lured stray cats into my room with sardines. I hid his passport in the freezer. We argued constantly. Over groceries, over who got the balcony at sunset, over thermostat settings. But underneath the bickering, something else buzzed. Tension. Heat. The kind you don't want to admit feels weirdly electric. One night, after a particularly petty fight about laundry, we ended up sharing a bottle of actual wine on the terrace. The stars were ridiculous. So was the situation. And somehow, we laughed. Really laughed. We got into a deep debate about travel playlists, then ended up lying side by side on the lounge chairs arguing over whether peanut butter belonged in gelato. It didn't, obviously. But the way he defended it made me laugh so hard I nearly snorted wine out my nose. We stayed there until 2 a.m., talking about nothing and everything. We started calling our feud, the Great Italian Villa War, complete with fake battle cries and strategic alliances. One morning, I woke up to find a peace offering on my door, a cappuccino, and a pastry from the local cafe I loved. No note, but I knew it was him. I retaliated by not locking the bathroom door while he was showering, just so I could bang on it and scream about a ghost sighting. He screamed. I laughed for 20 minutes. And somehow, all that ridiculousness chipped away at my anger. Maybe even at the sadness. He annoyed the hell out of me, but he also made me forget the betrayal, the rejection, the humiliation of coming to Italy alone. Jamie, of all people, was helping me heal in spite of himself. That night changed something. We talked. For real. About our failed relationships, about what we wanted and didn't want. He'd been engaged once. She cheated. He never really healed. I shared about the breakup, how tired I was of trying to be perfect to earn love. He listened. Not with that fake nod people do, but actually listened. And then he told me I was more real than anyone he'd met in years. He told me about the ring he bought but never gave, the way he couldn't bring himself to delete her photos for a year. I told him about my ex's emotional cowardice, how he always made me feel like too much. We swapped pain like it was currency. Then we fell asleep on the couch. Not together but near. Close enough that I felt his breath when I woke up at 5 a.m., and found him curled up in a throw blanket, his hand still holding mine. Later that morning, I found a note on the kitchen counter in his loopy, sarcastic handwriting. Apologies for the proximity. I believe we both fell asleep mid-trauma dump. Cheers to emotional hangovers. I laughed harder than I should have. That same day, we took a walk along the river. He showed me how to skip stones and failed miserably at it. I taught him a yoga pose on the bank. We both ended up falling backward into the grass, laughing until we were breathless. It felt like a bubble, a fragile, unspoken kind of intimacy that neither of us wanted to name just yet. But it was there. Growing. And when I looked at him, for the first time, I didn't see the guy who stole my wine and insulted my socks. I saw someone whose pain echoed my own. Someone whose silence could feel like safety. We started doing things together. Gelato runs. City walks. He took me to this tiny bookstore and read Shakespeare out loud in terrible Italian accents. I dragged him to Juliet's balcony and made him take a cheesy selfie. We still bickered, but it was playful now. There were still lines we hadn't crossed. But something was brewing. And we both felt it. One afternoon, we took a wrong turn and ended up at a family-run vineyard. The owner, a sweet old woman named Louisa, invited us to stay for lunch. Over fresh pasta and too much wine, she asked if we were newlyweds. I nearly choked. Jamie just smiled and squeezed my hand under the table. I didn't correct her. Later he told me he'd never really understood why people got so dreamy about Verona until that day. It's a city for second chances, he said, looking out at the skyline. That stuck with me. We started building routines, sharing pastries in the morning from the same cafe, him always picking the one with too much sugar, me pretending not to like it before stealing bites. We'd linger in art galleries and critique paintings like we were experts. He had a way of bringing things down to earth, of pulling beauty out of the everyday. And one afternoon, as we sat on the villa steps watching the light fade into a lavender sky, he reached over and tucked a strand of hair behind my ear. It was such a small gesture, but it made something flutter in my chest. He didn't say anything. He didn't need to. It was the last weekend. Verona was lit up for the summer festival. Lights, music, laughter. We danced in the piazza, twirling like idiots under the stars. And during the fireworks, he reached for my hand. He didn't let go. We kissed. Soft, unsure, and then certain. And I felt it down to my toes. Not the kind of kiss that fixes everything, but the kind that starts something real. Later that night, he walked me home, his hand still wrapped around mine. We didn't talk much. Didn't need to. Everything was humming. Everything was awake. When we got back, we sat on the floor in the kitchen eating leftover risotto with spoons, laughing like idiots. And when I finally went to bed, he kissed my forehead. It was somehow more intimate than the kiss in the square. But the kiss wasn't the climax. It was the pause between two halves of a life. That night, we lay on separate couches in the villa's living room, talking softly. I told him about my childhood. He shared his fear of growing old alone. He said, "You make the silence feel full." I didn't know what to say, so I reached out and held his hand in the dark. We fell asleep that way. Fingers tangled, breath steady, hearts caught mid-transition. The fireworks hadn't ended. They'd just moved inside us. The next few days were a blur of lingering touches, inside jokes, stolen kisses. But the clock was ticking. My flight loomed. What happens after this? I asked him, pretending it didn't matter. He hesitated. I don't know. But I don't want this to be it. Neither did I. We made a list of everything we hadn't done yet. A hike to Castel San Pietro. One last visit to our gelato shop. A silly vow to each try something we hated, for me anchovies, for him karaoke. We did it all. We crammed memories into those final 48 hours like we could stop time by sheer will. On the last night, he wrote me a note. I didn't read it until I was on the plane. But before that flight, we had one last dinner at a restaurant by the river. Candlelight flickered, casting gold shadows across the table between us. We didn't talk much. Words felt too big and too small all at once. Instead, we toasted with wine and leaned closer every time the laughter of other couples faded behind us. Walking back to the villa that night, he stopped in the middle of the street. No cars. Just silence and cobblestones. I'll miss this, he said. Not just the place. You. The version of me that showed up around you. I didn't reply. I didn't trust my voice not to crack. When we got back, he helped me pack, folding my clothes with exaggerated care, and muttering sarcastic comments about my 5 different black dresses. Then, he kissed me goodnight like it was a promise. It felt like falling and floating at the same time. He walked me to the airport. No promises, no dramatic scenes. Just a tight hug, and one last kiss that said everything words couldn't. I flew home with a heart both full and aching. The note said, "If this was a movie, I'd chase you through the airport. But I think we're better than that. I think this isn't our end. I'll find you." I read it 100 times. I cried somewhere over the Atlantic. And when I landed, I didn't text him. I let it breathe. Let myself feel everything. The first week home was a haze of reverse culture shock and emotional whiplash. My apartment felt too quiet. My routines felt like cardboard versions of what I'd left behind. I replayed moments from Verona like scenes from a film I wasn't sure I'd imagined. I'd open the fridge and expect to see his sarcastic notes. I'd hear a song and remember us dancing in the piazza, pretending the world had shrunk to the sound of laughter and heels on stone. Then 2 weeks later, there was a knock on my door. I wasn't expecting anyone. My hair was a mess. I was wearing pajama pants and holding a bowl of cereal. When I opened the door, he was standing there. Jamie. Holding a bottle of wine and a one-way ticket. I told you I'd find you, he said. 2 weeks later, there was a knock on my door. There he was. Jamie. Holding a bottle of wine and a one-way ticket. There's no war anymore, he said. Just peace. And maybe, love. I was in sweatpants, with toothpaste on my chin. I nearly slammed the door from sheer shock. Instead, I laughed. Then cried. Then pulled him inside. We didn't jump into a relationship that second. We sat on the couch, opened the wine, and talked until the sun came up. He told me he quit his job. Said he needed to start over. Said he wanted to start somewhere near me. He told me he'd thought about calling, emailing, texting, but none of those ways felt right. He wanted me to see him. To feel the weight of his choice. To know it wasn't a maybe or a fling or a leftover whim from Verona. It was real. The next day, he found a short-term rental 3 blocks away. We didn't rush anything. We walked. We talked. We kept it light while letting the roots settle deep. He met my friends. Helped me carry groceries. Cooked me dinner and burned the pasta. We laughed, just like in Italy. He was still Jamie, annoying and charming and maddeningly observant. And somehow, I was still me but lighter. Less guarded. It was like meeting again, only this time, with everything unsaid finally on the table. We didn't dive into forever. We started slow. But real. Dinners. Calls. Trips. And eventually, a shared apartment. Not a villa in Verona, but a messy, warm little place with 2 toothbrushes and 1 heartbeat. Love, it turns out, sometimes walks in with a smirk and a suitcase. And it stays. He still drives me crazy. He sings in the shower. Leaves dishes in the sink. But he also brings me coffee in bed. Rubs my shoulders when I've had a rough day. Whispers ridiculous Shakespeare quotes in my ear just to make me laugh. And sometimes, late at night, I look at him and think, thank God the villa was double booked. We built a life that wasn't perfect but it was real. Mornings tangled in each other's warmth. Quiet dinners with mismatched plates. Rainy Saturdays spent painting walls and getting more on each other than the walls themselves. And whenever someone asks how we met, we just look at each other and smile. It's too long to explain. Too ridiculous to sound real. But it happened. And I wouldn't change a thing.